guys, welcome back to Great Fire Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Bay, a.k.a. Trey Bay Knows Boxing.
And I am Willie Mack.
So, guys, we have a very, very special guest today. He could have been a boxer. He could have been a model. And some might even say a stripper. But he chose to be a doctor. And not just any doctor, a plastic surgeon. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you guys Charles Galanis M.D.
What's up, guys?
Did I say it right?
How are we doing? Yeah, everything except for the stripper part. I think you got some false information.
Some might say.
Right.
So I was a huge fan of Nip Tuck.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was, it's funny. It's like a generational thing. That's like one of those shows that you remember,
Yeah.
but you bring up to people and they're like, if they're young, they look at you like, what in the world are you talking about? But yeah, when I was younger, I remember that show. That was kind of ahead of its time, to be honest. I mean, I feel like that show would thrive now, but I feel like it kind of came up at a time when plastic surgery was a little bit more taboo, I think, than what it is now. Show got crazy too.
So would you say you're more like Sean McNamara or Kristen Troy?
I mean, any guy would want to be more like Troy. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
No guy's gonna.
I don't know about that.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess so. I don't have the. Probably more that lifestyle than the other one, but who knows?
So let's talk about augmentation. What exactly does that mean?
So, like, if you're talking the most common surgery in all of plastic surgery in the United States is breast augmentation. There's about 300,000 a year just in the U.S. alone. So it still is and has been for a long time the most common operation. Liposuction is probably number 2. And what the interesting thing about it is the trends have changed. In the 80s and in the 90s, you had like the Pamela Anderson look, the really exaggerated breast augmentation look, where it was kind of synonymous with a fake look.
Yeah.
Most of the patients you see now, even here in LA, no matter where, they're not looking at it, they're just looking to be natural, but just fill out their clothes. So that sort of label of just that fake look it's kind of passé. Most of the patients I see, they're not looking for that. They're just, it's women who are coming in, either their mothers who've had kids, and they just say, look, I just want my body back.
True.
And I've just lost that, it's not the same. Or you have younger girls who are like, there's just outfits I can't wear. There's just certain things I don't feel comfortable wearing. And the majority of them are regular people. It's not people who are excessively vain or shallow. They're just normal people who, it's a confidence thing. They're not doing it for anybody else. It's just what they think when they look in the mirror, it's like their inner beauty not matching their outer beauty, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what that's about.
So how important is it to look good and feel good?
Well, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when I was young, I remember a sports coach who was like, look good, feel good, play good.
Mm-hmm.
It's
True.
like whether you're playing basketball, whether you're boxing, like you got to, it's no different than the guys who are coming out to go boxing and they got their entourage with them and they got their get up. I mean, Rocky made a whole series of movies based on like what they're wearing when they come out. You had Apollo Creed coming out with those shorts. So a lot of it is how you feel has very much to do with what your outward appearance is. So, there's a healthy limit to that.
Absolutely.
It can't define your worth, but it certainly can be something that can just give you that extra little bit of confidence.
So what's let's say if somebody wanted to come in and get, I guess, any type of surgery, what is one of the first, I guess, bits of advice that you give them?
Well, I mean, I think one of the most important things you got to figure out what's their motivation, right? I mean, you got to make sure that they're coming from a healthy place with it, something they've thought through. I don't take it lightly, and it's still surgery at the end of the day. You're taking healthy people, and you're saying, let's go have surgery. There's nothing wrong with you. Let's go put you to sleep. Let's make an incision. Let's do all these things. So you obviously have to make sure that those people are coming at it with a sound mind. They've thought about it, that you educate them so they understand everything. So, that's kind of issue number one for me is they're doing it for themselves. They do it for the right reasons. They're not doing it for some, it's not some kind of whimsical thing. And then, my role, it's kind of funny, man. Like my job is my whole way of life is predicated on delivering a service that nobody needs. I'm basing my living on delivering a service that's not needed. That's my whole livelihood is based on
Absolutely.
that. So what I look at it as, it's never a question of need. People come in, if they ask, what do I need? The answer is, you don't need anything. You leave. There's nothing. This isn't about need. This is about me listening to what it is. It's where your eyes are going when you look in the mirror. What's bothering you? And us working together to say, what are some things I could do to help you with that? Not because you need it, but if you want it for yourself, let me talk about the ways that we could do something to help you. And it's kind of that simple. That's sort of my concept with it. I'm not the pushy type. This is not something you should convince someone to do. This is something they have to come in, they want to do it, and
Yeah.
you're there to just help them make the right choice.
Yeah. So let's talk about family for a bit. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the Midwest. So I grew up in Wisconsin. All my grandparents came over from Greece, and so I grew up. They came through New York, and then ended up in Wisconsin and Missouri. That's
Why
my
did I
mom's
think
side.
that you were Cuban?
I don't know. Maybe it's because of Josh. I don't know. Maybe it's because you see me move. I don't know. Whatever. But so that's so that was kind of where our family settled, and I grew up there. I have 3 siblings. Both my brothers live in New York now. I got a sister who lives outside of D.C. Had an uncle who was actually an amateur boxer. That was kind of when I was first sort of interested in it when I was younger. And then my dad and my dad and mom are still there. They're empty nesters though, so they travel a lot. They're still in Wisconsin, but they travel a bunch. So, that's kind of, I grew up a Midwest kid, man. I don't know. And I ended up out here. Go figure.
So what got you into, how did you become a doctor? Out
So
of all things?
I was good at school when I was young. I wasn't like the nerdy type, but when I was younger, it came easier to me, and I could kind of figure things out. I like the sciences. I like people. And from a very basic way of thinking about it, when I was young, the only thing I could think of that put science and people together was medicine.
For sure.
And I liked the idea of there was any direction you could go with it. I mean, there's so many different fields within medicine. I didn't know I wanted to do plastic surgery when I started. I knew I wanted to be a surgeon. I liked that idea. I'm impatient. I like the idea of kind of making incisions and kind of getting right to things. But so that's kind of how it started. And I actually got in out of high school. So I was able to get into a combined program out of high school. I still ended up getting a college degree because I had a good time in college. But that was kind of the trajectory of it. And originally I was going to do cancer surgery, so I did general surgery first. But then I found I really kind of enjoyed plastics a lot, and I liked that. Plastics did have the opportunity to become like the sole proprietor of your own business. You could kind of mix that, like build your own practice the way you want to do it.
That's true.
Whereas a lot of other medicine is you're connected to a hospital. You're owned by a hospital. You're owned by the insurance companies. I don't live that life. So my life is, I'm my own boss. I say how I want to do the practice. I'm going to do it this way and do it that way. This is what's going to cost. It's riskier. I mean, I don't know what's going to be like in 4 months. No idea. I don't have a salary. I only make what I do, right? So there comes with risks, but the reward is greater. I
Absolutely.
think.
Yeah, no doubt.
So is there such thing of being addicted to surgery?
Oh, yeah, sure. You'll see people come in. You got to say no sometimes. You'll see people come in and, I tell people the diplomatic way of saying it is there's 3 situations I'll say no. One is if it's not safe, like they have a health problem or a health issue that it just makes it's an unnecessary risk. The second thing is if the timing is wrong, like it's a woman who's pregnant or someone's actively losing weight, so they haven't gotten to their set weight yet. Timing isn't right. And the third thing is, and the most diplomatic way I can say this is, I don't think I can meet your expectations. That's a way of saying, like, I don't see what you're seeing. I don't know. Maybe I do not understand what is it you want. But the way to say it that's not offensive is, I'm worried I can't meet your expectations. I feel like I'd be stealing your money. And they kind of don't know what, they kind of look at you like, well, thank you. If they don't understand that I'm just saying no, but that's how it is. Yeah. So those are the situations where whether they're addicted to it or whether they're coming in for wrong reasons or they have some sort of, what's called body dysmorphia, which is where it's a known condition where you see yourself just completely detached from reality.
Absolutely.
You're someone who's 80 pounds and you think you're obese. Those kind of things. I mean, those are scenarios you kind of have to deal with.
So your first surgery, what was that like?
Oh man, it was a minute ago. But I'll tell you that. So I started in general surgery, and general surgery incorporates. So I did my residency at Johns Hopkins, which is in Baltimore, and Baltimore is a bad, violent city.
Yeah.
And in the summer. In Baltimore, it's like 50% of the stuff that came in the ER was penetrating trauma, gunshots and stab wounds, which is a high percentage. Most of the stuff in trauma coming through an ER is a lot of car accidents, falls, things like that. But that's how high it was when I was a resident there. And that may not have been some of my first cases, but those were some of the ones I remember the most starting out. And the way residency works is you start, it's a lot of years, and when you're first involved, you're doing minor surgeries, and you kind of work your way up, and you gradually do more. Bigger operations, and you're first assisting on them, and then you're the one doing them, and so that's kind of how it goes. So when you're starting out, they're small little lumps and bumps, and it is weird the first time when you take a knife and you cut into someone. I mean, there's a strangeness to that, I guess, but it becomes so routine after a while that it's just, it's no different than anyone else's job. I don't think my job that, I don't think being a surgeon, I never had a God complex about it.
No.
Everyone's got a job. Everyone provides a service.
No.
No one's more important than the other, in my opinion. It's just what you choose to do, and it's what I chose. So, I don't know.
You ever thought about taking up acting?
No, man, I'm terrible. I did like
Oh.
I did a
I was going to mention General Hospital.
Oh,
I said ER.
No, man. I remember I was in I thought like when I was young, I'm like I could do that. Everyone has those dreams when they're a kid. Like, oh yeah. And I was like a play or something, and I like forgot my lines on stage. I was a disaster. I was one and done for me. I don't think I could pull that off.
That's crazy. No, I was about to ask you to spin off your question. You know that show Botch, like Come On Eat, right?
Yeah. I actually work with Paul Nassif.
Yeah.
So he and I work together because so Paul and Terry, the two guys in that show, they don't work together actually. It's just for the show.
Oh.
So Paul's in Beverly Hills, Terry's in Terry Dubro's down in Orange County. So Paul's a facial plastic surgeon, and so he got acquainted with my work a couple of years ago, like what I did, and so I collaborate with him. Any patient that comes through him looking for body surgery sends him to me. So I go actually to his office 6 days a month. So I know him pretty well, but anyway, that was an offshoot. That was a
No, I wanted that info. I wanted that.
That was a selfish
plug.
plug. You go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, what was the most difficult botch that you had to redo if you redone
For
some
me,
of those?
I haven't seen things that are. I know that shows they've seen some absolutely crazy things that I haven't seen in practice. I mean, the things that I'll see, I have seen some unfortunate cases where, surgery was done to the breast that was left people with horrible scars that they can't even cover, incisions that were not in the place they were supposed to be, and just leaving people scarred and disfigured. I'd say a lot of the things I've seen that are terrible are when people have gone, whether it's to Mexico or even sometimes here, and they get stuff injected into their butt. That's like not supposed to be. I mean, that can end up really nasty. And it's not an easy problem to fix. I mean, some of the things you can't fix. Some of the, even on that show Botch, I haven't watched that much, but I know there's plenty that comes in that they're like, sorry, nothing we can do.
There's nothing we can do.
Turn around.
And it's scary because it's hard to police that stuff. Fortunately, it's kind of a buyer beware market. There's not a lot of regulation, so stuff happens. It's crazy.
I mean, you mentioned it as, or I guess like what you do is like your work. Would you consider like a work of art, like as your?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like I heard this once. I'm trying to think what was the three things. It was the intersection of beauty, science, and self-improvement. So that's like, or art, science, and self-improvement, kind of something along those lines. So, yeah, there's certainly an artistic component, or just an aesthetic component, like, appreciating dimensions, appreciating harmony in terms of things that match and things that are proportional. I mean, there's a part of that, absolutely.
So let's talk about women for a second. Are you married?
I'm not married, no.
Oh, so of course.
Yeah.
So you live in the typical.
Well, I don't know about that, man. I mean, I had, when I'm 41, which isn't that old, but it feels old.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I tell people it's not the years, it's the mileage. And I lived in New York for a couple of years, and when I was around 30 years old, and I had a great time then. And I think I had some issues with commitment for a very long time in terms of, and to be honest, I used my career as an excuse a lot. I'd be like, well, I'm working
Moving
and
around,
I'm going to be moving, and it's probably, it's definitely selfish at times, and probably didn't make the best decisions that way. But and it's weird because I sort of started to see how being a physician or being a surgeon, how that would change the way some people would look at you. Like
For sure.
You became like, oh, checks in things to check off a box. And you could just see how certain women would treat. This is nothing new, right? Certain women, and not all women, but certain women certainly will see somebody who's got like a potential career or whatever and look at them differently. If we took the same person and said, digs ditches, they wouldn't turn twice, and that's
Absolutely.
So I started to see a little bit of that, probably like.
So women are users.
I'm not saying that. No, I mean the truth is there are guys that do the same thing. So, I mean it exists on both sides, but it's just like I just became more conscientious of whether someone was interested in me for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
And also I had to be aware of myself of not exploiting it because I knew guys that did. I mean, let's be honest. Most doctors, and I may be in this group, are dorks. They're not like they're guys that were your guys and girls for that matter who studied a lot. They weren't they weren't necessarily the people that got the girl when they were younger, and now all of a sudden they're in this position where they get some kind of it's a little bit of a status symbol. And I've seen people who try to use that, and it's fucking disgusting, to be honest. No, I've seen it. It's just like, they think they're entitled because they're a doctor. It's ludicrous. It's crazy.
So what kind of women turn you on?
Oh, man. I think I used to call it the Jlo Factor. But let me explain what that means.
Oh, yeah.
I like a woman with range. Like, the thing reason I bring up Jlo is like she would always, she could be dressed up in like a Versace gown and go into the Met Ball and looking amazing. And then she could have her sweats on and be in like gym gear.
Absolutely,
I
love that.
And pull that like that kind of range is what I like in a woman. Someone who can who's equally comfortable in all those situations. That's something that always attracted me. And I've always been attracted to the girl that's smiling. Like when I walk into a place, the resting bitch face never has been something that's like.
We talk about that
all the time.
And you know what? I mean, especially in LA, you go out in LA and it's like you can.
It's very common.
You'll see the people that are out there that they may go out for an entire night and they don't talk to anybody. They just stand there waiting and looking pissed off at the world or whatever. I don't notice that. Like I mean, and I think most people. I don't think I'm unique in this either. I mean, I notice the person who's smiling.
Absolutely.
Because I think that tells a lot about their demeanor. And I don't consider myself a judgy person, and I think that. That I identify with, and someone who's open-minded, who doesn't judge, who doesn't think they know everything. I certainly don't know everything, and who am I to judge? I've screwed up too many things in my life to judge anybody. So I don't think anyone's really fit for that role. So those are kind of things. I mean, it seems very generic, but you'd be surprised how many people on both sides of the gender do not fit that description.
Exactly.
It's the most simplest things that people
dating
feel.
here sucks, man. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you married or what?
No, not at all. I'm on the same page with you. On the same page, just building and growing and just focusing on our purpose. And we kind of get the same thing to some extent. I mean, and that's why I mentioned women are not users. They're not. I mean, like you said, like it happens on both sides. But at the same time, I mean, I'm just enjoying the ride for the most part because it seems like it's just a ride.
Well, I don't know like where your listeners are from, but LA is a completely different animal than most cities. I mean, I lived in New York, Chicago here, and LA, like I call LA kind of a quid pro quo society. A lot of the people you meet, it's like, what can you do for me?
Absolutely.
They don't talk, 100%. They don't say it outright,
100%.
But it's like, why would I get to know you? What's in this for me kind of mentality. There's a lot of that here, and it makes people a little bit standoffish. So, I love LA. I mean, it was an acquired taste, but I love it. I don't want to live anywhere else. But the dating world here is no picnic, man.
It is.
It's a head scratcher.
It is. It is.
So, are you attracted to women who've gone under the knife?
I don't judge on that, honestly. It doesn't, like, if they have, great. I mean, I've dated women that have and have not. It doesn't bother me one way or the other because it has more to do with their. I mean, it's corny, but like if they went under the knife, I mean, if within reason, of course, someone who's been head to toe looks like a different. They show you pictures of them from 10 years ago, and it looks like a different human being. I mean, that might give me cause for pause, but that's nothing against them. It's just that I think most of the women I've been with, a lot of them have had something done, but I don't really look at it that way. When I'm not at work, that eye isn't on. I don't see the world through that lens. Like the most common question I get from girls or from women is, are you looking at everyone in a room and figuring out what you're going to fix or what you would fix? And the answer is absolutely not.
No. What show was that?
What's that?
There was a show that was like that, right? There was a show where there was a doctor that actually went around and did that.
Oh, that's messed up. Well, I didn't know about that.
It had to be.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, because if you go crazy if you're like that. For me, it's like, if I'm at work, sure, if someone's asking me and I'm evaluating, but if I'm not at work, I'm just looking like anybody else. I'm not looking at people like that.
Yeah.
Not patience.
Yeah, true.
So due to the popularity, how often do people contact you via DM about surgeries?
About 30% of my business right now comes from Instagram, and I don't have that big of an Instagram account. I think it's like 19,000 followers, but I get a lot of engagement on it, and a lot of my patients come through that. It's like social media has completely transformed our industry, as I'm sure it has for a lot of industries. But It's especially because plastic surgery, aesthetic surgery is visual, and Instagram's a very visual platform. Just boom, it's right there. But it's been great. I mean, it's a great resource to kind of contact or have direct contact with people. You get some stuff through there that's
unbelievable.
Off the chain.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, it shouldn't be there, or I don't respond to whatnot. But
yeah,
most of the stuff I get is pretty legitimate.
So showing the stuff like the behind the scenes stuff, is that something that you were always like okay with, or is it something that you kind of had to get used to?
That's definitely something I changed on. Initially, I did not like bringing the camera into the operating room. I thought it gave the wrong impression that you were, not focusing on the patient, and I changed a little bit on that. And I admit to that. In fact, I didn't openly criticize people that did it. I was just like, I'm not sure about that. And I kind of looked at it and realized that it was very similar to when I was in training and there was an attending surgeon and a resident. It's no different than what a surgeon would be doing when he was teaching a resident. It's the same kind of thing. You're still giving your attention to the patient. That's not lost. You're not endangering the patient. As long as it's done within, the confines of professionalism and you're not being crazy. There's been some incidents, I don't know if you saw in the news elsewhere, where there was like a dermatologist who was dancing and singing during a case and the patient ended up dying. So there's ways that, you need to rein that in and make sure it's, the way I try to do it is a way that's educational, informative.
Absolutely.
It's not meant to be just pure entertainment for the sake of entertainment. It's meant to be like the way I tell people, the way I look at Instagram now is it's a way to educate people on plastic surgery in general, my practice specifically, my personality a little bit, the way I do things.
Absolutely.
Without sacrificing kind of authenticity and just being real. Like there's some out there. I know some guys out there and their profiles they're bullshit. I know what they're like. I say it bullshit because I know them in real life, and then I know this version that they put out, and they're not the same. That's fine. I mean, that's marketing. A lot of times marketing, do what you got to do. People look at it that way. But for me, it's just easier on Instagram with my business if I try to keep it consistent.
No,
that's good stuff.
So.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go, I guess, off the charts just a little bit. Boxing. Let's talk a little bit about boxing. Did you see the fight?
Yeah, I did.
Who won?
Josh's going to kill me for this. Here's what I think. So, I thought this, and I thought Roy Jones Jr. made a good point afterward, and I actually think this made sense. And I'm just saying this as a fan. I do not have the experience or intelligence or boxing know-how of you guys, but as a fan, Canelo fought a different fight.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what he was rewarded for. And I think Triple G first of all, I was kind of surprised the early part of the fight at how he was looking. What's funny is if you just watch the last 4 rounds, this is the part I disagree with Josh about. I thought Triple G was dominating in the end of the fight. Not dominating, but I thought he was in control of the tempo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He was, Canelo was on the ropes at one point, I think in the 10th or 11th. He was controlling the fight. But I think at that point it was just kind of too late. I think Canelo had done what he set out to do. And I think boxing, anytime goes to the scorecards, it's not a close fights.
Exactly.
You're going to have people that are pissed.
It's always going to be.
I think, what do you guys think about this, though? If you got someone who's an undefeated champion and he's in a close fight, do you think they should ever take his undefeated record and his belt away from him on a close fight like that? Or should it just be, if you can't beat the champ in a convincing manner, you don't get the belt, especially someone who's undefeated, who's owned the middleweight?
I think due to the fact that it's boxing and it's all about the popularity and sales, I'll say they went with the guy who's going to help them sell. Mm-hmm. And, of course,
are you talking about Golden Boy, or are you talking about boxing went with him?
It's funny because I made a joke because I was watching it with Josh. I'm like, Golden Boy gave one of the judges $1 million, like probably sent them via Cash App or something like that. No, but due to the fact that it's boxing, they go with the more marketable, the more marketable individual. Yeah. Which is, of course, Canelo based on the numbers. Yeah. But the UFC does it right for the most part because that is pretty much the rule. You have to beat the champion in order to be champion. Yeah. Yeah. And I watched the fight again, and to me, Canelo clearly won the fight. Yeah. By maybe about a round or two. Right. But he did his thing for more than half of the fight. Yeah. Let's just say that.
Yeah, on ESPN they were saying that Canelo won the first half of the fight, and then the last half was Triple G, and then somewhere around the 6th or 7th round it was like a draw. And like you guys said, I think the most marketable champion came out with that fight. And then I think I heard somebody say that Golden Boy might have paid off the ref. But.
Well, I think they,
Who
they
knows?
also, part of the scorecards is kind of the style and the tempo and imposing your will. It's not just about landed punches, right? And I think Canelo won in that part of the scoring
as far as
card.
coming forward.
Yeah, coming forward and coming with power and not just kind of playing the jab game and, getting, not just actually going for power punches. So I think that's what the judges saw. And I think there's an argument for either side. I feel bad for Triple G because I do think he got screwed on the first fight, but I don't think anyone got screwed. I don't think he got screwed on this fight. I think even if you're someone who said that you think Triple G won, it's so close that you can't be. It's that first fight was that one scorecard was crazy. Crazy.
Yeah,
that was insane. I just remembered it. It's kind of like you were listening to it when they were reading it off and how the one judge scored the card, and you're like, 18? Like, what?
Yeah.
So at least there was none of that this fight, but I don't know. It was a great fight. I remember, when I was younger, you start off as in the heavyweights, right? Like I grew up watching Tyson and seeing Tyson beat Spinks in like 90 seconds or whatever it was, and seeing that stuff, and then when you get older and you start really kind of, if you're a fan, you start to get into the welterweight or the middleweights, because then you see a little bit more of like the art of it, right? And the strategy and the speed is different, and it's not just if a guy gets lucky and connects on one, it fights over, like a lot of times can happen in heavyweight. So
absolutely,
you really start to kind of appreciate that a little bit more. So it's good to see that when we were younger, it was all about the Tyson fights. They weren't talking about Hagler fights like they talk about Tyson fights or the heavyweight fights.
It wasn't as popular.
Right. So, but now, people are talking about heavyweight, but not really. If anything, they're talking about why Wilder isn't fighting in the heavyweight championship, but they're not talking about. But what they're talking about is they've been talking about people like Pacquiao. They've been talking about people like, all the middleweight or the better
smaller weight classes.
So. That's been fun to watch. I think as a fan, it's been good. I feel like it's good for boxing.
No, it definitely is. It's like the art is actually returning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as boxing training, how long have you been doing that?
I kind of screwed around when I was younger, but it was really when I lived in Chicago. I'd say about 6 years ago, I linked up with a coach who. It's the same kind of way I met Josh. I had a friend who had a guy who was a retired fighter from the UK, and he was in Chicago. And I had enough money to do one-on-ones. I never wanted to do classes because I hate classes, not boxing classes specifically, but any kind of workout class. I just can't I don't know. It just doesn't, just the idea of there's people all around me doing the same thing or someone's yelling at me. I just never liked it. And so the idea of having me able to work one-on-one with someone. And so I was lucky because the people I've worked with have been about, it's a workout. Look, I'm not a boxer. I don't tell people, I box. I tell them it's a workout for me. I've sparred and I've had coaches who try to coach on form and not just to get a workout, but are like, hey, you're not, you gotta keep your hand, all that kind of stuff. And that's the part that's been fun for me is learning as a boxer might learn, but I'm not a boxer.
Absolutely.
I don't have that skill set. I don't have that kind of speed or power, but it's it's been fun to do that, and it kind of coincides with if you're a fan of the sport, you can watch it a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
You can maybe understand it a little bit more and be like, oh, now I understand why setting him up this way or what he's doing or when he's going to the body or not going to the body and all that stuff. So it's been fun, man. And it's like the boxing as a workout is so much more for the mind.
Absolutely.
Than I think people realize.
Yeah.
You said a lot.
Way more.
A lot. Yeah.
I say that a lot. Yeah. I always tell people that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and I think of it in two ways. One, it clears your mind, and you can get a lot of stress out, and there's that part of it. The other thing is you realize when you're done, if you've been going for if you're going one-on-one in an hour, let's say you're working specific combos, you see when your brain starts fatigue. You can't remember the simplest shit. I used to give Josh a hard time because dude would bring out the camera at the end, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna fuck this up. I can't. I can barely get my feet under me. My hands were dropping, and it's let's work on whatever combo you want the first 10 minutes. And let's film it then, and then let's.
That's what I started doing now. Once we get it a couple of times while we're fresh, let's get it on camera right now.
Because when your brain starts to go, it's hard.
And then the camera's right in front of you, so you're a little bit more pressure.
Yeah.
I wonder why he would do that for.
Because we all kind of do that.
Oh,
it's towards the end, and that's we think about. We should probably get this shit on camera.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then we,
but also a lot of times too, like when you're a novice and it takes you an hour to kind of get
Yeah, to
down
get it
what
down,
someone's
yeah.
trying to do. Like if it's in a 12, 11 punch combo or something, it might take that long for you to kind of get it down and get your feet right and know what you're doing. So that before that, if they had filmed it, had been all screwed up anyway. So I get that. But I mean, I got to a point where I was decent with some things, and we'd be doing it for a while, and then you would break out the camera. I'm like, dude, no, come on.
So when is your birthday?
February 18th.
Okay, what's that?
It's Aquarius.
Oh, okay,
Same
okay.
time as my dad. Cool,
That's
man.
dope.
Yeah, so I'll be 42. Shit, that sounds crazy. You ever think about that? Like when you were a kid and you heard someone was 42, what you
Exactly.
thought of that person looking like or seeming like?
I think about that all the time because I'll be 32 this year, and it's like, damn, like I remember when I was 15, I couldn't imagine myself
Dude,
even
32
saying I'll be 32.
That's like you're in your prime, man. I'm
I'm
like
still
falling
fresh.
off. Falling off.
Nah, you still got it, man.
Struggle.
So what's next?
What's next? It's a good question. I mean, professionally, look, there's always growth. So my trajectory is interesting because I was in practice in Chicago for 3 years, and then I came back to LA. So I was at UCLA, left, went to Chicago for about 3 years, and came and then dropped everything and said, you know what? Like it was one of the craziest risks I ever took because things were kind of moving along in Chicago well. I was comfortable. I was doing all right.
Yeah.
But I wasn't happy there. I wasn't happy with how my job was, kind of the situation I had. Didn't inspire me. Chicago's a great city, but I just didn't feel like home.
Yeah, that's important.
And it was like one of these days where I'm like, there's nothing holding me back. I can go wherever I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I want to go back to LA. And so I'm like, I'm going to go set up back in Beverly Hills. And I had people who are like, you're crazy. How are you're going to parachute into the most competitive plastic surgery market, arguably in the world, and you're just going to set up shop and see what happens? And I said, yeah,
Yeah,
see what happens. And
that's how things happen.
it is. And
crazy.
it's been great. I mean, it's gotten further in the last few years than I ever would have expected. I've been very fortunate in a lot of ways. And as far as what's next, it's always growth, right? Mm-hmm. So, I don't want to lose the style of my practice is one of being kind of I guess I would call it a boutique style where I do value, it's not a punchline. Like I love the relationship I get with my patients.
Absolutely.
Like that's what makes it worthwhile. Like
Yeah.
just like, you're training, you have that relationship with your clients, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And watching that progress, right? Seeing someone who doesn't know how to stick a jab, and then next thing you know, they're doing like freaking throwing hooks like Tyson, like just it was kind of like I don't want to lose that as big as the practice might get. I still want to have that time with the patient. So how do I do that? So the way you do it is you make sure your schedule is set up very similarly in terms of the time you spend with each patient. You build up other services that may have more, I guess you call passive income services, where you build a greater staff who can offer other services that even when you're not there can be profitable and helping patients. So, more space, more people, more services. That's what it's going to look like. But it's going to take time. I'm in no rush, but I got some plans.
You have any other ventures outside of the office?
Well, I used to. I mean, honestly, for me, fitness was always big. So, boxing and fitness is kind of like a hallmark. If that falls off, I can tell a difference in just how I feel.
Yeah.
My business takes a lot of my time. So, I have that, and then I travel when I can. I've always loved traveling, and I took some time off of that, away from traveling for a while, and just this past summer I went on a long trip, and it reminded me how much I love to travel and see things. And I used to do sketch drawing and stuff like that, but I don't know. Whenever people ask me what are my other interests, I'm like, shit,
Work.
maybe I got to work on that.
Girls.
Yeah.
Working girls.
Yeah, so I don't know, but that's kind of, my life has mostly revolved just around my, my practice, and then just, personal health and growth, just like everybody else. What about you guys?
Do you find it stressful?
What's that?
Do you find it stressful, like what you do?
Sometimes. I used to be a constant stress bucket, I think. I used to be a lot worse than where I am today. And I, part of it, a lot of it was, I think, was self-induced. I made some, whether relationships in my life where I just mishandled them, or just putting too much pressure on myself with work and expectations that I was just setting and to kind of crunch myself. And I think I had a moment not too long ago where I was just like, it comes down to a few simple principles of the way you got to live, and let go of the outcome.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's what this is actually. That's what this is about. So it's a, for me, it was
And
get a handle on
what does
these
that say?
things. So there's I kind of for me, and everyone's different. Like everyone has their own things that are important to them, or their own priorities, or ethics, or morality, what have you. For me, it took a lot of making mistakes and a lot of for my own experience in life to come down to like 6 things, and it was empathy, humility, tolerance, acceptance, honesty, and then the P is for either being basically present and purposeful. So being in the moment but living with purpose. And what I found when I came up with these things, when I put them down, it phonetically spelled faith. It was P.H.A.T.H.E. And so I put it on my arm backwards so that in the mirror I could read it.
Yes, cool.
So every time I get ready in the morning, and what it meant for me was if I can do my best with these things today, just today, be present, live with purpose, be honest, accepting, tolerant, humble, empathetic as best you can. No one's perfect. I mean, there's days everyone screws some things up, no question. But then I could have faith that everything's going to work out. Whether it's a business, relationship.
Absolutely.
If I do those things, everything's going to work out the way it's supposed to be. So that's how I kind of beat the stress. I just try to go back to those things.
I mean, one thing that I actually say is, what's meant for me is meant for me.
Right.
Which makes it easier to pretty much, understand wins and losses.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Or, that's pretty much what it is.
There's have you ever heard of the power of now? This guy named Eckhart Tolle. So it's this thing about mindfulness has been a big thing. Mindfulness is about living in the moment, being present. People talk about that, but if you really, really think about it, this guy said something interesting. He said, sitting here right now, what problem do you have? Right now. If I asked you, Trey, what problem do you have right now in this moment? Do you have any problems right now in this moment?
In this moment.
In this moment, talking to me?
No.
No. And I'll bet you if you ask yourself that question an hour from now, 2 hours from now, the answer is still no. A lot of the problems we concoct or the stresses that we make have nothing to do with what's actually in front of us and happening.
That's true.
It really isn't.
It's very
about
true.
a fear of the future or lamenting over the past, but it has nothing to do with what's actually real. And when he and that's what it was kind of funny because a lot of the things he said, they make sense, but and we're like, of course, but it's really hard to practice them because
absolutely
we've been hardwired,
to panic.
Society is hardwires us to think about what's coming up next. What are you doing next? You got to pay this bill. You got to do this instead of what are you doing right now? What's happening right now? And if you focus on right now, those things just seem to take care of themselves.
They don't exist to some extent.
So I got to carry that with me.
It's cool. Sure. I mean, you should read it. It's good. I mean, it's not like I can live that way every minute. I mean, we're all human, right? But it's interesting to get that perspective. I really identify when I read things that are very common sense. That break down something complex and just it's common sense. And you're like, of course. Yeah. And then you got to practice it. You really got to put it to where it doesn't just happen.
So what was it called again?
It's the power of now.
The power of now.
Yeah.
The power of now. Okay.
It's pretty good. It's just an interesting kind of. It's a good read.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it.
Definitely a good stress buster. So
I might order it after this show, man.
let me ask you something. I'm curious about this. I'm always curious about this with people that train who know boxing well. How do you get through a session when you're dealing with people that are just don't get it, don't know, their form's terrible, how do you navigate that? How are you in your head? Are you not like, fuck, God, Jesus Christ, what am I doing?
For me, no, it's ways to simplify it, and there is times it's rare, but there are times where I'm like, this is bad. It's a really, really bad case that I have to deal with.
Oh boy.
And for me, I'm known for actually being able to break the hardest situations down. I mean, literally create micro steps. So, I mean, there's a couple of different methods that I use to actually help people to help people perceive things differently.
Yeah.
Because once you can visualize or you can perceive what's in front of you a little bit differently, let's say certain cues actually change certain things.
Yeah.
I want to give some examples, but I'm working all day. But there's a couple of cues. There's a couple of little things that I do. Let's say as far as a hook. For example, let's say trying to throw a forward hook or a left hook or a lead hook. So you can actually you can have a pole right in front of you, one that's probably about not that wide or whatnot. You could put your front foot right next to that pole. Then you throw a jab on the side of the pole. Then wrap your arm around the pole with the hook, just like that.
Yeah.
So let's say you go one. Let's say if it's something or an object that's right over here, you throw one just like this. Then you throw the hook around it.
Yeah.
Then that's a perfect hook.
Right.
So with that, I mean stuff like that, and for the most part, it's just break it down into like micro pieces.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's all about how they learn. Some people learn visually. Some people learn through verbal cues. Some people actually learn through that military style.
Yeah.
In which I can incorporate anything to make it happen.
It's funny too because I think about like I've seen guys who are training in boxing and I just can see them like thinking they're ready to fight someone, like they've learned some things in a class and now they think they're boxers.
No,
and
it's
kind of
that
easy
easy.
up. And I had some friends who did amateur boxing where they were good in the gym, and then their first like amateur fight, it's like wow.
People have to understand this.
Yeah.
Consider this. Like what George St. Pierre said this. He said literally going into a fight, you can go in there 100%, but he said right before the fight, you can lose 40% of what you came in with just based on nerves and stress.
Yeah.
So he said, think about that. Now, for me, like what I always tell people is imagine just the walkout. Think about how much time that is.
Yeah.
So you have to think about what's about to happen next. You know how stressful that moment is?
It's crazy.
Then you have to worry about what somebody's going to do to you, and you have to worry about what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to keep everything together. Then the first round, you might be a little bit too stiff, not knowing that if you are too stiff, then something could happen.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot that goes through that. Then again, of course, in boxing, everything is at risk. You lose once, everybody hates you.
Yeah.
And it's so messed up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and even like with Triple G, you have some of his fans, now they hate him for losing or for getting that decision. It's like, if you guys understood what that man had to go through, he does not know how to, he doesn't know how to fight. He's not comfortable fighting backwards or moving backwards to fighting.
Right.
He's not a counterpuncher. So imagine the type of situation that he had to deal with somebody who's coming forward, you know, and it was very unusual for him. He's never had to, you know, go backwards.
Right.
And that's something that's stressful within itself.
Yeah.
To be put in that position is like, holy crap. So, I mean, just the look on his face completely explained what he was going through. That's pretty hard.
When you're training people, do you try to are you sort of training with the intention of I'm pretending I'm getting you ready for a fight, or is it like I just want to give you a good workout, maybe show you a few tips about boxing, but I want
my main thing is just giving them a different perspective. That's the best way that's the best way that I can explain it. Just making sure that they have a clear understanding of what they're doing.
Right.
That's what it is. I mean, having a good workout, I mean, you can make anybody sweat, but even within the conditioning workouts or like the full work drills that we do, I explain it thoroughly. Yeah. Therefore, what we do from the beginning, middle, and end, it all comes together and it all makes sense.
Right.
Therefore, I mean, it's like that experience. It's an experience that they, in a sense, can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, but that's the way that I format everything for everybody. And depending on the person, depending on what we do within an assessment, I can determine or format or customize their actual workout.
Yeah.
With boxing or without it. Yeah.
It's frustrating for me, man, because right now I feel like I'm at this point I feel like I'm armed with enough knowledge to know that I suck. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Like when you get to understand the way the form should be, and then you see a video and you're just like, God damn, it's terrible. You know, you almost wish you were back to you didn't know shit, and it was just like,
I mean,
all right,
it gets better and better and better. And of course, when you working with like you working with Josh, so you know he has multiple. You know, he has a Cuban style. It's multiple styles that he knows.
Yeah.
So once he applies that, and of course, you know, with the education behind that, you'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a process, just like anything else.
Oh, I know, but it's just like if you're a perfectionist, and it's
exactly
just like when you get, and it's look, something like boxing or any art for that matter. If you're not doing it like every day, you can only make so much progress, because the problem is if it's a couple times a week, you know, you make a little bit of progress, but you're going to lose some of that within a day or two if you're not beating it in your head.
Absolutely.
So you kind of max out at some point. That's what I mean. Like you get to a point where it's like, all right, I'm okay, but it's like, God, you just see some things you're like shaking your head. Like, all right, well, at least I got a good workout out of it. At least I got a good workout out of it.
Good deal,
That bag isn't hitting back.
Oh, man.
So, guys, this has been another episode of Great Fire Podcast with the host P.H.A.T.H.E, a.k.a. P.H.A.T.H.E Knows Boxing.
And it's Willie Mack.
And our very, very special guest, Charles Galanis M.D.
Thanks, fellas.
The doc is in there.
Good times. Thanks, boys.